Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. And what do you know? Another day, another Lorna Slater story. She really is excellent value for money. Having failed to put the internal market exemption paperwork through until the 6th of March this year, thus leaving virtually no time at all for it to be assessed by Parliament, it now is revealed that they haven't done their economic and environmental assessment either. That hasn't even gone in yet, and they've got 8 days left before the May 31st deadline. So it looks like that bottle return scheme is completely dead. If they're not willing to put the effort into actually putting the paperwork in and doing the work they required to do, why can they possibly moan that this is Westminster's fault? I mean, they'll blame Westminster, they'll blame anyone other than themselves. But they should have put this paperwork in as well. They didn't bother. It's no wonder everything they touch turns to absolute comedy gold. Let's look at this report and see what she's buggered up this time. So Lorna Slater has still not supplied the trade assessments to the UK government as hope for DRS dwindles. I think all hope is lost. I think everyone has now accepted that the bottle return scheme that they're on about is now completely dead in the water. It has gone. It has joined the choir invisible. It is an ex-parrot. Any hopes that the UK government might give the green light to the disastrous bottle recycling scheme have shattered further, as it's revealed that the SNP and Green ministers have less than 10 days to submit vital impact assessments, says Alistair Jack. It's actually down to 8 days now. This was written yesterday afternoon. I only saw it this morning. It's down to 8 days they have to get this in. So it isn't going to happen. Alistair Jack has all but shattered any hopes for Lorna Slater's recycling scheme after he announced they were still missing elements of the application for an exemption to UK trade rules. Yes, they have this internal market exemption because you're not allowed to do things in one part of the country and not in the other because it's seen as unfair trade or can be damaging to one part, even if it's damaging to your own part. You wouldn't be allowed to do it. But there are certain things that you can get exemptions on, but you have to apply for them. And they've been saying that the SNP and the Greens have been saying they've been trying to do this for 2 years. They only got the paperwork in on the 6th of March. It's a clown show, isn't it? It really is. It's the big top here. But they haven't even done this impact statement. So they've got no chance at all. The Green minister made a the Greens minister made a damning assessment of her own project last week, telling businesses that unless the deposit return scheme can get an exemption to the UK Internal Market Act by the end of May, it will be unviable. It was always unviable. It was never going to work in its form. It was so ill-conceived and badly thought out. It was a disaster waiting to happen. It was stillborn. It was DOA. It was never, ever going to work. Anyway, addressing the ultimatum, the Scottish Secretary, Mr. Jack, said he is yet to have the information he needs to assess the application, adding that there are a number of concerns from industry leaders like Tesco. I've done the video on Tesco rejecting it because it is so incomplete and awful. And effectively Tesco was saying that if this was pushed through in its present form, that Tesco would not be selling any drinks on its online service, simply because it was not economical to then send the lorries back out to pick up those empty bottles in order to refund them. And they said effectively that would be it. And those people who are vulnerable, who require deliveries, would have a tough time of it, basically. Anyway, asked during the Scottish Affairs Committee on Monday if his office was expected to come to a verdict in the next 9 days, Mr. Jack didn't say one way or the other. He said, Jack all. Instead, he said, on the interministerial government meeting on the 17th of April, I asked for impact assessments to be done on consumer choice, consumer costs to business, to trade within the UK, and to international trade. In other words, what effect it has on trade deals. The content of those assessments would have looked at future trading from France, Australia, New Zealand and Wales, whose industry members have all raised concerns over the cost, and that may lead to a trade barrier with Scotland. But she wouldn't know that because she's not clever enough to see these problems. She isn't wise enough to understand how international law works, how trade works, how the treaties that we have in place can be impacted by very, very stupid people coming up with incredibly stupid ideas because she lacks the IQ to see these things. Mr. Jack said he needed to know if, for example, French wine producers would pull products from the shelves in Scotland because the market isn't big enough and they could sell it elsewhere. And I think they've probably got a point. I haven't seen those proper impact assessments yet, and I can't come to a decision on an exemption until I see proper impact assessments so that we know we're making the right decision and we're not causing unnecessary consequences. And that is the problem with Slater and people like her. They come up with these brilliant ideas, but they don't think them through. They don't look at the rules of consequences, especially the important one, the law of unintended consequences, where doing one thing because you think it's right has a massively negative effect because people, generally, and it's like the cobra problem in India, when they said, oh, there's too many cobras, we'll give you a bounty on cobras. And so people went out and caught cobras, brought them back and got their bounty, got a pound. It wasn't a pound, it was a few shillings, but they got a couple of shillings for a cobra. And then people realised if they bred cobras, they could make a bloody fortune. And so they started breeding cobras. They made a lot of money. And then the government said, hang on a minute, this isn't right. And they stopped paying the bounty. Well, these people just released all the cobras. And so the cobra problem got worse. It cost the government a lot of money and the cobra problem got worse. But that's exactly what these people are like. They don't think of consequences because they're just not bright enough. And the thing is, they're not even not bright enough in themselves. They're not bright enough to ask expert opinion. They don't know what they don't know. And they don't know how to get to ask people who do know. It's government by idiots. It really is. It's an idiocracy. Anyway, the Circular Economy Minister, Miss Slater, has placed all the blame on the UK government, even though she's the one not filing the paperwork. While the likes of Tesco calls for UK-wide scheme to save their recycling programmes, and online retailers say they will no longer be able to deliver glass or plastic bottles to homes, and the impact will hit vulnerable and disabled shoppers. And this is what the SNP and the Greens do because they are all incapable of thinking. They're incapable of foreseeing problems. They just announce these things because they want to look virtuous. Well, their virtue is going to damage the economy and going to harm vulnerable people. But hey, they feel good about themselves. First Minister Hamza Yousaf took it further and said the UK government would be solely liable for compensation claims coming from the industry who were unable to make a return on their investment for the scheme. Now, I will be doing a piece on that later today, but it's going to be a lot of money. It could be as much as 500 million, but we'll look at that in more detail in the other video later on. Miss Slater doubled down on her previous comments and hasn't addressed the claims of missing impact statements. Mr. Jack clarified that he was in possession of impact statements from before the UKIM. However, given the majority policy, he thought it was absolutely right that they were updated. And the Green MSPs told the Scottish Express, we have engaged with the UK government in good faith on the exclusion for Scotland's deposit scheme for nearly 2 years now. Yes, engaging is wonderful. Putting the paperwork in is very important. And that's what you didn't do. She went on, the UK government needs to do the right thing. It is doing the right thing. It's waiting for you to put the paperwork in and agree an exclusion. Now, why should they agree without knowing what the impact is? This is the difference. The UK government are waiting for all the paperwork and all the knowledge so they can make an assessment before making the wrong decision, whereas you just go out and make the wrong decision. Do you not understand the difference, you stupid woman? Anyway, she said, we are grateful to all businesses for the investment they've made in preparing for Scotland's deposit scheme. However, you've got to ask, will they be repaying those businesses? Because it won't be the UK government doing it. This investment will be important for the success of the scheme. She's still delusional enough to think that this scheme is going ahead and that it will be a success. The woman needs to be sectioned. The UK government will be responsible for their decision and any implications it will have for all those businesses that would lose significant investment. She lies. This is all down to the Greens. They are the one not doing the job they're supposed to do. They knew they had to put the paperwork in. They didn't. They knew they had to do impact assessments for the economy and for the environment. They didn't. Why not? Why not, Lorna? Tell people why you didn't put the paperwork in. And then stop trying to pass the buck to Westminster. Westminster cannot make a decision when they haven't got the information that you are supposed to supply. So ultimately, this is going to come back and bite you on the backside. It's got nothing to do with Westminster. And I'm not defending Westminster here, but it is the fact that it is down to the Greens failing to do the job they're paid for. And I shall round off and I shall come up. These morons really do live in an alternative universe, don't they? They seem to live in some place where rules don't matter, where time frames are unimportant, and where consequences are merely happenstance. They literally have no idea of the chaos they leave in their wake. And then when it does all go wrong, which it always does because they are thick, they try to blame other people for their own shortcomings, foibles and mistakes. Well, it won't wash, Lorna. This is all down to you, and you know full well the Westminster government aren't going to give you a brass farthing. You are going to have to find that money, you are going to have to do the compensation, and you will bankrupt everyone trying to pay for it. And they will sue. These companies have got very big lawyers. It'll be fun to watch, but it's a pity for the people who are waiting for an operation when they have to take $500 million out of the economy to pay for the mistakes of the Greens and the SNP. Anyway, I shall round off there. Thank you very much for watching. Do please hit the subscribe button if you are a regular viewer. We are getting very, very close to a nice round figure. I would like to reach that really soon. And so if you are someone who watches a lot of us but hasn't yet subscribed, which is about 65% of you, so do hit the button. It takes a moment of your time. You won't miss any more stuff. Otherwise, do please leave a like. That's very important. It helps the algorithm. Leave a comment, share the video, and until next time, stay safe, stay well, always get your paperwork in on time, and goodbye.